Fox News. Breaking news.
A beautiful young college student is dead. She was shot and killed in Chicago, allegedly by an illegal criminal alien. And while President Trump paused his own cabinet meeting to address this tragedy, calling out the mayor and governor by name, Democrats are busy claiming Chicago's crime is at a 60-year low. A 60-year low. Tell that to Sheridan Gorman's family. Tell that to the billions of taxpayer dollars flowing into so-called violence intervention programs that one Chicago alderman is now calling an outright scam. What if I told you the whole thing is a massive money laundering operation disguised as community outreach? Would that surprise any of you? It is Democrat run. So this isn't just about Chicago. This is about your tax dollars being funneled into a shadowy nonprofit organizations with zero accountability while American citizens are being murdered in the streets. The Free Press just exposed that over $1 billion has been poured into these community violence intervention programs over the past decade. That's $1 billion. And what do we have to show for it? Chicago's murder rate per capita is still higher than the national average. Young women like Sheridan Gorman, whose father grew up with Trump's own Deputy Chief of Staff, Dan Scavino, are being gunned down by criminals who shouldn't even be in this country. Meanwhile, these nonprofit grifters are buying luxury cars and demanding more funding with no strings attached. And President Trump made Washington, D.C. safe. People who work in the White House are now telling him they can walk to work without being mugged. I can walk to the White House now without getting mugged. So can Gary when we cover the White House. We always have to be very careful what we cover up when we're there. But Democrat mayors and governors refuse to let him do the same for Chicago. And why is that? Because there's too much money flowing into their political allies in nonprofit industrial complex. Let that sink in. It's about money. And you know, speaking of people getting their lives back, I have to share something personal with you. For years, Gary's wife battled chronic pain and anxiety from her diagnosis, endless doctor visits, treatments that didn't help, and watching her struggle daily. It broke Gary's heart. Then Jonathan Otto introduced them to red light therapy. Her pain vanished. Her anxiety lifted. She's sleeping soundly now, full of energy and life again. And Gary's own recovery and vitality is better than guys half his age. And that's been truly life-changing for the Franchi family. This isn't some gimmick. It's backed by NASA research and FDA cleared. And studies show rapid pain relief and real results. And if you or somebody you know or somebody you love is struggling, you owe it to yourself to look into red light therapy. Sometimes the solutions that actually work aren't the ones Big Pharma wants you to know about. Now we're going to get back to this billion-dollar scam because it gets even worse, of course. But here's what the mainstream media won't tell you. Chicago Alderman Silvana Talbares went on record calling community violence intervention a fraud. She said the biggest lobby in Chicago isn't big business, it's the nonprofits. They're making millions of dollars off these programs annually, and she says they're using the blood flowing in the streets to demand funding with no accountability. Even beat cops and supervisors are calling it a scam. But waiting to see what Democrats are actually claiming about these programs. It's going to be great. Let's get into it, guys. All right, from Caro Pompisi. This is Hi from Chicago, where violent crime is at a 60-year low due mainly to the success of community violence programs. Is everything perfect? Of course not, but CVI programs have been hugely effective. Let's see.
1130 South Wabash doesn't exist.
This program is a fraud. It's a scam.
I'm telling you, it's bullshit.
It's $100 million. You don't get a blank check for $100 million.
Are taxpayers and billionaire philanthropists inadvertently funding gang violence in Chicago? I went there to investigate. For generations, the south side of Chicago has been seen as ground zero for gangs. And I calculated that over the past decade, more than $1 billion has been spent on trying to solve that problem. But I was told again and again that there isn't enough accountability for where that money is going. And I found that some of the city's unusual tactics, like hiring former gang members to counsel current ones, seem to be backfiring, despite support from some of the most powerful Democrats in the state. I first became interested in these programs, known as Community Violence Intervention, or CVI, when I saw this. In September, the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, who has his eyes on the White House in 2028, held a meeting with some peacekeepers. The Peacekeepers is a program in which locals, many of them former gang members, are paid to mediate gang disputes and stop violence before it starts. The model was pioneered in part by Chicago Cred, a nonprofit founded in 2016 by Laureen Powell Jobs, the billionaire widow of Steve Jobs, and Arnie Duncan, the former education secretary under President Obama. Between 2017 and 2023, funding for community violence intervention programs in Chicago grew more than 15 times faster than the police department's budget. The rise of these programs is tied to a broader shift in how some cities have approached crime over the past decade. In places like LA, New York, and Chicago, some progressive politicians have pushed to move certain public safety roles away from the police and into the hands of community groups. 6 days after the governor met with the peacekeepers, one of the men he posed with, Kellen McMiller, was charged in a Louis Vuitton smash-and-grab robbery.
Breaking news on the Mag Mile. Thieves broke into the Louis Vuitton store.
Its windows smashed in by a pickup truck. The thieves scatter in different directions, piling into getaway vehicles.
One of the getaway cars crashed, killing local resident Mark Carlo Arcetta on his way to work.
You know what's interesting? Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker say that they're going out there and robbing these stores because they need food. Then why aren't they doing that to food stores, right? Why is it always luxury bags? Why is it always Louis Vuitton or Gucci or whatever? And then again, if all that stuff's being stolen, why don't they just go on Facebook Marketplace and go find the people that stole it? It doesn't take a rocket surgery person to do this, right? It's not rocket surgery. Somebody's stealing stuff. It's going to be sold somewhere. Go find it. And all they want to do is keep allowing this to happen. Because, again, same thing as in California with the homelessness. The crime in Chicago, they get federal funding for it. The more crime, the more dollars. The more homeless people, the more dollars they get. If they reduce crime, they get less funding. It's a business. Just like sticking people in jail is a business. Just like how many African Americans do they stick in prison for weed charges? That shouldn't even be in prison. How many people are still in there if they didn't get pardoned? Again, this whole thing is a giant scam. It's crazy. I live in Chicago. I grew up on the South Side. And this stuff just infuriates me because Chicago is a beautiful place. The people are beautiful. Major cities have such amazing people. But then you let things like this happen and it ruins it. Save America for everybody. Let us enjoy our cities that we pay our taxes for. While community violence intervention programs get praised, the arrest of a so-called peacekeeper exposes serious flaws. Now let's hear criticism from questioning the effectiveness of Chicago's CVI model. Again, they wanted to have the same thing Minneapolis had after the George Floyd riots. They wanted non-police people to interview and have intervening presence, or like they would send out an interrogator or somebody instead of a cop to like bring it down. The problem was Chicago and Illinois were hiring like active gang members to do this, giving them $600 a week, and then just letting them go out and do whatever. And most of the people never even reported back. We're going to get into that a little bit. I guess a whole nation adopted violence intervention to lower the national murder rate, huh? Although Chicago's murders per capita, let's see. Let's bring this up a little bit. Let's zoom in. So murder rates in the United States, 1985 to 2025, they spiked around 93. That was back during the crack stuff that was happening. That was really bad. It got really good down low. And then, of course, as soon as Trump gets out of office, it spikes. And now it's back towards the bottom. We're going to get into the next one here. As skepticism over Chicago's skyrocketing CVI funding, defenders claim it's reversing crime trends. Up next, we'll hear from those who believe public investments are paying off. From the Communities Partnering for Peace, it says the impact report affirms that public sector investments in the CVI program, of course, are reaching the people and contributing to safer communities. I don't know. I don't believe it. And while supporters paint a rosy picture of CVI's impact, critics slam it as a nonprofit scam fueling corruption, and Alderman Taveras has strong words for these programs. And I can't wait to see this. Over the past decade, taxpayers and private donors have spent around $1 billion on community violence prevention. Let's see what they had to say.
The biggest lobby in Chicago is not big business. It's the nonprofits. There's a large industry of nonprofits in Chicago, and they make millions from this program. And they're using the blood flowing in the streets, demanding funding with no strings attached. There is no accountability for how the money is being flown into these programs.
As you discovered, it's so diffused, almost impossible to get a definitive picture on what we're actually doing here. But every time we have some shadowy nonprofit agency that does nothing but take the money with no accountability and squander it or spend it on cars, it undermines the whole concept.
I have heard from top supervisors and frontline beat cops, and they all say that this violence interrupter program is a fraud. Is a scam. Individuals or organizations that are using taxpayer money for personal gain, we need to hold them accountable.
Again, they know that this is a problem. And as Chicago grapples with these controversies, tragic news breaks of another young life lost. President Trump calls out local leaders. It's so sad what happened to her. She was walking along the lake and gunned down. The person that gunned her down was somebody that Chicago had arrested multiple times, came back in under Biden's open borders. They let him go. Even after multiple felonies in Illinois, they let him go back on the street. And he killed. Let's see.
It would be great if people like the mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois would say, please come in and stop the crime. A beautiful young lady was killed the other day, and the father was a very good friend of Dan Scavino, and he took it very hard. Dan took it very hard, like the father, friends. They grew up together, and it's a young lady whose life would be saved if we did what we did as an example in Washington, D.C., which is now a safe city. All the time, people come up to me in the building, people that work here, they say, thank you so much. I know immediately what they're talking about. They're able to walk to work. They walk to work. You all walk to work. Some of you were mugged. I know you told me stories. Some of you were mugged. One person in particular was viciously mugged in the group right here. It's not happening anymore. You have a safe city.
So, this is the truth that they don't want you to know. While Democrats parade around claiming success, while they point to their fancy impact reports and pat themselves on the back while they're stealing money back into the other people's pockets, real Americans are dying. President Trump proved you can clean up a city. He did it in Washington, D.C. People who used to get mugged walking to work are now thanking him personally. Look at Memphis. Memphis jumped off a cliff when it came to crime numbers. But Chicago's Democrat leadership would rather let their citizens die than accept federal help? And why is that? Follow the money. $1 billion to nonprofits. Former gang members being hired to counsel current ones. Cars being bought with taxpayer funds. This isn't community intervention. It's a criminal enterprise wearing a nonprofit mask. And innocent people like Sheridan Gorman are paying the ultimate price. And here's the bottom line. President Trump is fighting for American lives. He's calling these corrupt politicians by name. He's offering to help cities just like he helped D.C., just like he helped Memphis. But Democrat mayors and governors would rather protect their billion-dollar nonprofit slush funds than protect their own citizens. And the question is simple. Are we going to keep funding these scams while Americans die in the streets? I want to hear from you guys below. Drop a comment below. Do you think community violence intervention programs are legitimate crime-fighting tools? Are they just another Democrat money laundering operation? Yes or no? And let me know. And while you guys are at it, make sure you share this video because the mainstream media won't touch the story. And check out the Next News merch shop at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com to support our mission. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, and remember, stay informed, stay free. God bless.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.